Hi guys, I'm the one in 1.3. Welcome to the family. Now in this video, I'm going to be giving you 10 things that I think parents should learn from the Netflix series Adolescence. Have you guys seen it? Guys, have you actually seen Adolescence on Netflix? If you've seen it, give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you thought about it. I spoke to one of my friends who said she likes episode 1, she likes episode 3. She didn't like episode 4. It was just too crazy for her. But for me, I watched 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I literally loved it. Now, if you haven't seen the show, stop this video because I'm going to be talking to you about it. I'm going to be showing you some snippets from the movie as well. And I don't want to spoil it for you, honestly. It's so good. In my mind, it's so good that I really feel like you should go and watch it. But I'm going to be diving straight in and telling you the 10 things that I think you can learn from that show. Now, I've got 3 children. They're growing up now. I've got a 22-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 17-year-old. And I would say that parenting children were so close in age, they're about 2.5 years between the first 2, and then like maybe less than 21 months between the last 2. So in terms of school years, they were 3 school years apart. And then the last 2 were 1 school year apart. So Malaya, when I took them out of school, Malaya was in year 1, Tiago was in year 2, and Rico was in year 5. So it's very interesting the way that it works, but it depends on the month of the year when you'll know when they kind of come into 2 years apart. Anyway, the whole point was that when they were babies, I feel like they were babies together. I had like the one that was 4 years old. I know I've heard of terrible 2s, I've heard of troublesome 3s, and then I didn't know what you could call 4s, but he was still like having tantrums at 4 years old. And then you had that's the year that his dad left though. So in terms of his tantrums, they were all like really emotionally connected. And then you had the 2-year-old at the time, Tiago. He had like his terrible 2s, and he had the baby that was just crying for random things. So when they were that age, I had like 3 kids, 4 and under. Then they got to like the pre-teen sort of age or the primary age together. Then they went through the teenage years together, and now they're kind of going through that whole like, you know, looking at their futures at that sort of stage together. So if you're like me and you've got children within that zone, you would know that it can be quite intense. And there was points in my children's life where they all kind of went through that phase of quietness, like just little seasons of quietness where you'd ask them, "Are you okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, Mum, I'm fine." And then you kind of notice that they're not really fine, they're not really being their usual bubbly self. And you ask me again, "Are you okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, Mum, I'm fine." Like, you keep asking me that. I'm fine, I'm okay, you know, I'm just going to leave it here. And then you leave it alone for a bit. And maybe as the days go on, they start bringing out like what was upsetting them in the first place. Whereas when they were younger, they were able to just articulate, "I wanted that drink and he didn't give it to me," or whatever the reason was. But you know, so as you're parenting the children, they kind of go through these different phases. But at the same time, it is what it is. So anyway, it was my son's 22nd birthday last week, and we were going to go out to watch a movie, but because he had work the next day, we thought, let's just watch something online. So we kind of came across Netflix. I think me and my daughter had watched the episode beforehand, but we kind of came across Netflix. We saw like an advertisement for Adolescence, it was called, and we thought, let's just watch this. It looks good. Press play. That was it. Didn't know anything about what it was about. Saw Ashley Waters in it, the guy that was in Top Boy. I think he even wrote some of these shows as well. And I was like, yeah, okay, this is going to be a really good show. Within 3 minutes into the show, I was like, whoa, what is actually getting on? And we start talking to each other, saying, okay, oh, what do you think happened? Do you think he did it? Do you think he didn't do it? Like I said, if you haven't seen it, stop the video, go and watch it, because I am going to be giving some spoiler alerts. But I just thought it was a brilliant, brilliant show. It's based on a boy called Jamie. He's 13 years old, and he is accused of committing a crime against a girl called Katie, who they say that he killed her. But the way that it goes on, when they kind of are in the police station, and it's showing like the whole protocols that happen when a child is obviously found guilty. The fact that you also had those police officers that kind of broke down the door and got into the house of Jamie to kind of see where he was. They must have you kind of think to yourself, there must be some evidence of him doing that. Otherwise, why would they be going through all of this? Because they don't want to be sued, do they? Nobody wants to be sued for making lots of mistakes. But it kind of goes through lots of different emotions, and it deals with so much issues such as things like emotional neglect, emotional intelligence. It deals with like masculinity and how some boys think about women, girls and women. It deals with something called incel that I'd never heard of before. It dealt with like Andrew Tate. I think his name was mentioned twice in there as well. I found it really interesting hearing the 2 different perspectives from my boys and my daughter watching the show, and just hearing how, you know, just hearing what's available online. It also dealt with some of the language that, you know, parents might come across on like Instagram with their children, like things that I never heard of before. They have things like a heart, like a red heart means love, and then like there could be a black heart and a yellow heart and a pink heart, and they all mean something. I was like, wow, I didn't even know this myself. And I'm like, okay, oh my gosh. But I'm not gonna lie, it kind of made me feel a bit nervous, thinking, okay, I don't know any of this stuff. But as my kids know of me, I've always had a very open relationship with them, so I just kept asking, like, what does this mean? Like, do you know what it means? But the funny thing about it was that they didn't even know what some of those symbols meant as well. So I was saying to them that obviously they are like the Gen Z generation, I believe they are, but then there's like Generation X, and there's all these other generations out there where even in church we learned that a generation is not as long as it used to be. Like, things are switching and changing up so much. But I just felt like watching it, I felt like there's so many things. 1 minute. There's so many things from this show that are so packed out about what is actually going on online. Now, when my kids were younger, I did a lot of like, adding the, I don't know, protection things. You have like, these protection things that you put in place for your children. And my son told me now that when he was younger, he knew what I had put on and he knew how to take them off anyway. It's like, whoa, this is crazy. But the whole point I got from that and what I remember is that you have to be so alert to different things all the time. For example, do you let your children go in their rooms and shut their door, or do you keep the door open? So I'm someone that likes the door to be open. Obviously when they're getting changed or things like that, they can have the door shut, but I like to just know that when I'm walking past upstairs in the corridor that their doors are open, I can see what they're doing inside their rooms. But you might be something different. Obviously as they've got a bit older, I've kind of given a bit more flexibility in terms of their doors being closed, but not all the time though. But I feel like, what do you do? Are you someone that just bursts through your kid's door, or are you someone that knocks? I'm not telling you which one I am, but the point is that you have to kind of think to yourself, what are we doing? What are our kids doing in their rooms when they're always in there? So I've been a bit like on edge a little bit. So my daughter, she was in her room just now. How come you're in your room so much?
I'll just keep invading it.
Okay. And I was like, oh my gosh, the door's shut. Like, what's going on? And then I kind of knocked on the door to go inside, and she had like a heart behind the door. But then the reason why she had it closed like that, because she was trying to give me a break from the dog. So she kind of kept the dog in her room and put like all the things behind the door so that he wouldn't come out of the room. So the whole point is that you have to be on the board and have to kind of know what your children are doing, know when to trust them. But I just thought there's like a few things that we can kind of think about in terms of educating our teens. Number one, the first thing is being in school doesn't mean your child is socialised. Now, within the home education community, we know that many people talk about the S word. We call it the S word. They always want to ask us, like, make sure your child has a social life and, make sure that your child is, like, being social. Like, what are you going to do, like, when you're home educating the kid? Like, how are they going to be socialised? They always go on about socialisation. You almost feel like, should my kids be socialised? Do I even want them to be socialised? What does it even mean to be socialised? And the point about Jamie was that he was a child who went to school, he was seen every day, there was teachers there were students there, and there were systems in place in the school. But yet he was still vanished through the system. People still didn't know who he was. He still felt very low about himself inside, and he wasn't really seen. There was a really sad scene in there where he's literally at the school, and he's at the police station. The police officer says to him, okay, trying to get to know him, like, Jamie, like, what was your favourite subject in school? And Jamie says history.
Why?
I like the stories.
And what's your favourite bit of history?
We're doing the Industrial Revolution.
And then in episode 2, when the police officer goes to the school, the detective goes to the school, and he sees the history teacher. Then he asks him, like, what was Jamie like in history? And the teacher wasn't even able to say, like, what Jamie was like, and he's just like saying, okay, these kids are hard work, whatever.
Are there any signs of unhappiness?
I'm just a tutor.
Well, you're a teacher.
Yeah, but I teach history. I don't see him, I wouldn't know,
He didn't even know anything about Jamie. He didn't even know that he liked history. He just kind of slipped through the net. And I thought that was quite sad. That was one like moment that I just kind of noticed. Maybe it was the teacher within me. But I just feel like, we have to do better in terms of like, teachers have to do better in terms of children. Now, I'm not saying that teachers are the villain. Teachers have so much to do. It's unbelievable. They have the planning of the lessons to do. They've got to assess the children. They've got to respond to parents' emails. They've got to make sure that children are happy within the class. They've got to notice any kind of safeguarding that's going on within the school. They've got to make sure that they are being respectful. They've got to make sure that they are dressed well and that they look a certain way when they're in the school. Now they've been asked to do things like counselling as well. They've been asked to do be social workers. They've been asked to be police officers, mentors, counsellors, so many things that teachers have to do that I don't blame them for not fully always being on the ball. The children, obviously, you've got to be excellent in no matter what job you have. And many of the teachers that I know of, that I work with my colleagues, we try our best for the children. But it is tough. And I think because the state is almost kind of coming in and making it be the parent of the children, they're covering so much within the schools now. It's like, okay, what do you want the parents to do? But no one's seen as a villain within the school when a lot of these stuff are taking place in school. But when a parent wants to take their children out of school to home educate them, they're seen as a villain. Where it's like, okay, you're taking your kid out of school, we've got to safeguard them. Safeguarding is everyone's duty. Anyway, we always have to have a disclaimer. But the point is that being in school doesn't mean that a child is socialised. Jamie was emotionally invisible, and he was around so many children all the time. But yet he didn't make any meaningful connections while he was there. Another one is quiet doesn't always mean that they're okay. Sometimes when we look at children, even within a school setting, we feel like, okay, the child who's bubbly and being noisy, they're the one that's disrupting the class. We feel like, okay, they're the problem. But sometimes there's the quiet kids, the ones who are not really being noticed, that are slipping through the system, that, you know, not like, I'm not saying they're all going to be criminals and go out there and murder people or hurt people, but the point is that sometimes you have to notice those children who are being quiet and not really being unruly and not really having any problems. I have children in my class that are so quiet. So what I tend to do in my classroom, I have like lollipop sticks I have like lollipop sticks with their names on it, and I pull out a lollipop sticks in terms of answering a question, because if I don't do that, I find there's certain children in my class who will always put their hand up to answer questions, but there's some at the back that are just not really getting involved, not really being engaged. So this way, every child knows that they're on the ball and that I want to hear from them. And then I just make a point of making sure that when I'm in the playground, on playground treat, I just make a point of checking in on them and talking to them and checking that they're okay. And I try my best. I literally take it on in myself as a teacher. It's my job at the end of the day, but I make sure that I'm looking at every single child. And I sometimes have a tick list as well to see who have I engaged with in the morning, who have I engaged with in the afternoon, and just trying to be there for each and every one of my students. But the point is that quiet doesn't mean that everything's okay. Teenagers will not always say that they're struggling with something. They may withdraw, they might have a bit of sarcasm, or they might be a bit detached, but you mustn't ignore those moments. Teachers are not always the villains. Teachers are overloaded by a system, as I've explained already, so teachers have so much to do. And, you know, even if we might not really get along with a teacher, many teachers generally care for the students in their care. I know that at primary level, I'm not sure what things are like at the secondary level, but I guess I've got friends who also teach in secondary level who told me that schools are not like what I saw in the show, whereas I've got other teachers who said, yeah, schools are like that and much worse. And I've heard the same from some students, like children as well, who go to school. Some they will love their school and say they attend a really good school. Others say, just get me out, I wish I could be homeschooled like your children were. And it's really sad because obviously there's so much going on within the schools, but the point is that we can't blame teachers purely for all of this of what's going on, but there is like systemic failings going on within schools, and it is time for us to kind of really look at them and explore them a lot more. There's lots of issues in our society anyway, especially when we think about things like knife crime and there's so much issues going on, honestly. But teachers are not to blame for everything. Another one that we need to think about as parents, that we can't always just like wait for a breakdown for us to show up emotionally. So you don't want to just wait for our kids to kick off and start like showing their emotions before we start thinking, okay, what's going on? Like, what's happening? We've got to be aware of them from before, and hopefully it never happens, but before they come to a point of crisis, we've got to be aware of what their emotional needs are. We've got to know their friends. Like, who are their friends? Who are they speaking to? You know, what are they doing at night time? What do you do with their phones? Maybe you take their phones off when they go to bed. I don't know, but we've got to show up emotionally with our children the whole way through. It's like prayer. Some people want to pray when things are rough, but they should be praying daily anyway. So we need to keep lines of communication open with our children. Talk to your children all the time, and don't just wait for an event to happen where they erupt and it erupts into chaos. Number 5, if you're not raising your kids, then the online world will be raising them. It's as simple as that. The kids nowadays, they have a phone, they have an internet in their pocket every single day. They can just type on it very quickly to get all the answers that they need, which is more so than it was when I was a child. I was a child in the 80s and the 90s, and it was different for us. We didn't have all these distractions within our phones. And it's not just children that we can blame for this as well. Like, you know, if you're a parent and saying, okay, yeah, my kid spends so much time on their phone, check out your own phone, and you can have like little calculators on there that calculate how much time you spent online. Check out your own phone. Check out how much usage you're using on your phone. Obviously, you're an adult. You can do what you want. But remember that your children are seeing how you respond to that. If you're going to stop phone usage in your house, I also think that the parents should also set a good example in that sense as well. I used to work in a Christian independent school. I had some kids there who don't even have like TVs in their house, and they didn't have mobile phones. And what would be in place of the TV would be an instrument. They'd have a piano there instead of a TV. And I thought that was quite cool. But me and my children, we don't really watch live TV. So I guess my children will be more so involved in things like Netflix. We had like Netflix at home, and we also had YouTube. So they're exposed to that from a young age. But we had the central TV in my house, one TV inside the front room. So whatever show that they watch, and they'd watch it whenever it was time for bed. They'd go upstairs to bed. There'd be no TVs up there, no phones upstairs. Then I'd watch my adult shows when they'd gone to bed. Obviously, as they got older, into like teenage years, I did get TVs for them, and I had to kind of monitor things a lot more. But we are like in crisis mode at the moment, where we have to kind of be ready and watching what our children are doing online. But if you're not raising your kid, or maybe you're like not spending too much attention to them, they're getting all the information online. So like Jamie in the movie, he found a lot of belonging from being online. He went into dangerous zones like forums, and he was just so interested in that sort of lifestyle. He was finding out his own ideologies by being online. He would also come home late, and he would also be allowed to be out of the house quite late as well. So obviously if he wasn't outside with his friend late at night, he'd be online, his door would be closed, they said. When he was younger, he used to like draw pictures, he used to do like football, he did a bit of boxing. But then when he got older, it just changed. He was in his room, he shut the door, the parents were like, oh yeah, he's changed a little bit. They didn't know what was going on. And a lot of that does happen in a lot of the homes in the UK as well. We have to make sure that we're not just having like limits on screen time, but that we're having general conversations with our kids, finding out about their life and their day-to-day. What is it that they're doing at school? What is life like for them? I had something that we did in our home when we used to do something called a high moment and a low moment. So I'd ask kids at the end of the day, like, what was your high moment today? And they'd tell me, okay, my high moment was when, and they'll tell you something good that happened in the day, and then they'll tell you one of their low moments, and they'd have to answer they have to answer both of them anyway. Even if they said, well, I didn't really have a low moment, they have to think of something that made that where their emotions might have gone a little bit down. It could be, oh yeah, actually I remember when I had to eat my vegetables, or something like that. We do that every single day, and that's what I do in school as well. At the end of the day, I always ask my students, like, what was your high moment today? What was your low moment today? What did you do today? To kind of get them to think about how their day went. And also at my school, we have lots of pastoral care. It's really good. My primary school is really good for pastoral care. Probably the best school that I've seen in terms of pastoral care. The head teachers put so much money into pastoral care. We have like 2 teachers that are the pastoral teachers, and they literally are there. So if you have an issue within your class where maybe some girls or some boys are like not really getting on with friendships, you do what you can as a teacher. But if you feel like you can't really handle it, or you can't really deal with it as much because you've got lots of planning to do, you can pass them over to the pastoral team, and then the kids can go in there as well. We have like counsellors as well. The kids can go to see counsellors in the school if they need to. And we put a lot of emphasis on like clubs and, talking to children with respect, and it's just like a really nice, happy school. And I like that aspect of my school. But the point I'm trying to make is that the online world is raising our kids if you are not raising them. Number 6 is don't be afraid to check the closed door. If you're a parent who doesn't mind your kid's door being closed, don't be afraid to go in their rooms and see what they're doing, okay? I know that when my kids are in their rooms, if they just come out the bath, then yeah, obviously they're getting ready or something like that. But I know that obviously at a certain time of day, they're in their rooms. I just go in there and just see how they are, just talk to them. And it's like an open door policy. They know that already. The door belongs to me, the house belongs to me, but they have got their own belongings there as well. But don't be afraid to go in the room to see what they're doing in there and talk to them. Not like you're going in the room to be like, okay, what are you doing? But like, just make sure you go in the room, sit on their bed, have a chat with them. Don't be worried about that. Don't think of it like, oh, it's my son's room, I can't go in. No, who's paying the bills for the house? You're paying the bills for the house. They're still adolescents. That means they're in the bridge between children and adulthood. Yeah, so just like that small habit, if you have a small habit where your kids are shutting the door each time and then you start being like knocking, darling, are you okay in there? It becomes like a habit where they just think, okay, yeah, it's my right to have my door closed, like, get out of my room. No. Those things don't happen here. So I would say don't be afraid. And when I'm talking to you, I'm not just trying to talk to you to teach you anything. Every family does things their own way anyway. I'm just kind of giving like I'm just thinking this through myself as I'm like doing this video. I'm not the expert. I just raised teens, and it hasn't always been easy. But that's just some advice that I would give. And if I had to do it all over again, that's something that I would make sure, even more so, that I would do. I guess I don't know. I keep saying stuff like this, but the kids will probably be like, Mum, you were enough already. Number 7, it's okay to choose a different path, like home education. So if you feel as though you're not happy about your child in his high school and things not really working out, and you're noticing in your child that something's not going quite well, your child is miserable, your child is unhappy, your child is saying he hates school, and you've tried different things, you've spoken to teachers, you've had like your interviews with them, or you've gone to see them after different meetings, your child is getting several detentions, but they're just not happy, or you're not happy with it, just remember that it's okay to have a different path, and a different path could be home education. If things not working for your child on a mental level, spiritual level, physical level, any of these things, you might be like, you know what, I want to do things differently. And the way that things stand in the UK right now in 2025 is that you're okay. It's okay for you to go out there and be like, okay, I'm going to do something differently. And if you want to home educate your children, you can. You're not the villain for stepping out of the system. And if the system's not working for you, then change the system and have a new system, your own system, home education system. Number 8, another thing I thought about in the movie was that parents of troubled teens are often in pain too. And I think the show, it really kind of highlights that a lot more, where you kind of realise that, you know what, these parents are going through so much, and you just kind of like feel for them a bit more. So when you've had like issues where you've seen on the news like something has happened and the child's gone off radar and does something wrong, sometimes the parents die with the child, you know what I mean? Or sometimes the parent get lost with the child, and society puts a lot of pressure on them and just blames them continuously. There must be so much parents out there who've had children do something wrong, and they're just like living their life under the shadow of their child's mistakes. And we have to remember that those parents are also going through pain as well. Now, the guy that played Jamie's dad was called, his name's Stephen Graham. He was so devastated. Like when you get to season 4, I could just see it in him. Like there were points in the movie where he would just black out and he couldn't hear the cashier behind him. He couldn't hear his daughter. He couldn't hear anything. He was just literally in his zone, and he was crying in his heart. You can just feel it. Oh, the emotion was so sad. I was just so sad for him. Like watching it thinking, okay, I'm just so sad for him. I'm just thinking, what's their life going to be like now, you know? But it really got me to connect with the pain of the parents where the children are not the ones who have made them proud, basically. And there's a book I've been reading It's actually called Business Through the Glory of God. And there was a little bit in there that talks about, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I wrote this down. It says, if you're a parent, you know the special joy that comes when you see your children imitating some of your good qualities and moral standards. When we feel that joy as parents, it is just a faint echo of what God feels when he sees us as his children imitating his excellent qualities. And I just thought, even though that book was about business, I just felt like that was so true, that when we know that we've got some good qualities in ourselves and our children imitate those qualities, we feel really proud about that, When we see our children imitating our negative qualities, it doesn't make us feel happy seeing ourselves in them. And when our children do things to distress us or do things to let us down, it makes us feel so grieved in spirit. And I think that's what I noticed with the guy, Stephen, like Jamie's dad in the movie. He was completely heartbroken within his heart. I feel like, he could die of a broken heart just based on how sad he was. And Ephesians 5:1 also says, be imitators of God as beloved children. So we need to tell our children that they need to imitate God, imitate the lifestyle of Jesus. Like, ask yourself things like, what would Jesus do? That was something that we learned as children ourselves, and I think it's still so important today as well. Number 9, if you're home educating your children, remember, character comes before curriculum. Don't be afraid to stop the learning if you feel like your child is going off and there's something within your child that you need to kind of work on. Don't forget to stop the curriculum if you feel like your child needs some social time. Like, my children, I'd give like different bits of time for each and every one of them. Like, sometimes one of my kids will come and sleep in my bed when they're of a certain age, and then another child might sleep in my bed, and another child might sleep in my bed. Sometimes all of them would be in my single bed with me when they're really young. I think when they got like, maybe, I'm not going to say that, they might embarrass them. If you feel like, your child needs to work on something, work on certain skills, like even if it's like cleaning up the house and they're not really washing up dishes, stop what you're doing and make sure that those fundamental things that you believe in as a parent are being adhered to in your house. You can always catch up on academics, but if something's not right within the heart, you have to stop there too and kind of work on that thing. And that's where your focus needs to go. You need to teach responsibility, kindness, repentance. But as well as that, you need to always be the safe place that your child can come back to. You need to love on them. Just love on your kids. No matter if they make mistakes too, love on them, forgive them in the same way that the Father forgives you. And then the last one, based on the quote I just had a minute ago, is to be imitators of God, not just managers of behaviour. Our kids will imitate what they see. So if your child sees you on the phone all the time, they're going to want to go on the phone all the time. If your child sees you drinking Coke all the time, they're going to want to drink Coke all the time too. If your child sees you cuss some bad words, your child's going to want to cuss bad words too. You see it with like little kids, like, when they're playing with their dolls, a lot of it comes out in doll play. Like little kids, like they start doing the things that they've seen their parents do, they act it out on their dolls or on pets or things like that. So you've got to be, not always though, because I feel like even in the movie, I remember the therapist was kind of leaning to the fact of Jamie's dad, trying to work out what Jamie's dad was like in the home. But Jamie's dad was nothing like what Jamie was. And Jamie's dad actually was with his mum when they were the same age as Jamie. And they obviously grew up together and had their kids together later in life. And he was quite gentle. He walked her home. And there was so much different scenes that you kind of get from the car scene as well. He's talking about their life. You can compare the difference with what Jamie was like and what the dad was like. So it doesn't mean that because your child because the child might have responded in a certain way, that they got that from the parents too. They got it from other places too. And the show was showing us that a lot of what Jamie got was from online behaviour and radicalisation. I forgot, my son's got a chain on him, a little bell. But yeah, and also like they mentioned Andrew Tate quite a lot in the show as well. And just like showing like masculinity and the different ideologies that kids have been learning there. But the point is, number 10, is be imitators of God, not just managers of behaviour. If we want our children to grow in truth and integrity and in compassion, we need to model it to our children as well. Day in, day out, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. So day in and day out, we need to model the right behaviour to our children. Yeah, so that's basically what it is. But that show really reminded me that raising teenagers is not about ticking boxes. It's about loving on our kids and being present. It's about raising the whole child, the heart, the mind, and the souls. And that's why as Christians we have a bonus point. We have the Bible that can kind of really show us good examples of the way that we need to behave ourselves. And it gives us like people always say things like, oh, you don't get a book to raise your kids, but we actually do. You get the Bible that helps you to raise your kids as well. But anyway, for you parents, if you're in the thick of it right now, if your kids are like, letting you down in some way, or you're just feeling like it's a bit of a struggle, like raising them, still just be present in their life. Like, be present, still have your boundaries. It's never too late to start again. Well, once they left home, it's obviously a little bit late at that point. But if your kids are living in your house with you, it's never too late to start again. It's never too late to refine it all and to go back to the drawing board and kind of work out what it is that your children need. Get people to pray, but don't just rely on prayer by itself. Pray and also have action. So if your child is like going through, there's so much things that teenagers are going through these days, you need to find a way to allow yourself to grieve the child that you wanted that child to be, but find a way to help that child as well by setting firm boundaries, going back to the drawing board, praying to God, writing down what it is that you should be looking like, and communicating with your child and being present with your child, and having rules set in your house. They don't have to be too strict, but also looking at yourself as well, looking at the way that you're modelling your behaviour to your children, and joining communities as well that can support you if you don't have any other support around you. So that's it really. So let's just raise our kids who are seen, who are loved, and who are known, not just by us, but by the God who never leaves them and never leaves them unseen. Alright, so if you like my content, then please like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you again on another video. God bless.